Hello, everyone. Just letting our guest for today, Jaguar, into the live in just 1 minute here. It's a good time to get a cup of tea and your journal if you're planning to hang for a conversation about womb love. Hello.
Hi, yay.
So good to see you as always.
It's so good to see you.
So
You
you're
look warm and cuddly, and I just like jumped out of the ocean.
Mhm. It's perfect. I am actually in Southern California, but contrary to popular belief, we do have fall and winter here.
It gets cold.
Yeah. So I'm
Hmm.
dying to know what uh, you're up to in Oaxaca, what your connection there is, because I want to go so much, but I've never been.
Well, first of all, wherever I am, there you shall be very soon, or like inevitably. It's like mi casa es tu casa. I feel really I'm like establishing. I think I've been looking for where's this frequency where I feel good in my body and the
Mm.
work flows in alignment with the earth, like me and the earth are like working together, and there's this ease. We've talked magical medicine women just channel, but you told me, I was like, I don't know if I can handle even the vision that I have of like a place to be and a home to do my work. And you were like, well, when it just comes to you, you'll know exactly what to do. And that's kind of what it feels like is happening. Also, I grew up in Mexico. Are you seeing me? Your face is freezing a little bit.
I can see you. It's coming in and out a little bit because of the connection, but I feel like pressing on and hoping for the best.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. No,
Well,
I'm sitting with a bunch of crystals.
whenever I hear somebody talking about, their vision or just, speaking, I would normally say speaking from the heart, but with you, it's like really speaking from the womb. I just feel it lower in my body. And I do start to like journey to that frequency. And I could really feel like you in that collaboration with the land.
Yeah.
And it felt really good to my body. So I believe you that you're navigating to that place.
Yeah, I feel like even though not always physically present, like I've been walking the journey with you in my heart for some years now, and always like resonating with your work and feeling just some people that you meet, and then I always feel like a little tear that you meet and then you feel like, okay, her work is like we're sisters in the earth, and her work is like supporting my work, and we're working together even if we're in different geographic portal points. And I
Hmm.
feel that with you a lot.
Hmm.
And I feel this earth same, it's like a similar energy how I feel like when I meet someone like you and how I feel when I meet Oaxaca. So I think that's
Hmm.
why putting it together. And then I am saying that the journey is telling me, you're the Jaguar woman, you're carrying this Jaguar energy, and this is Jaguar land.
Hmm.
This
So good.
Jaguar everywhere.
That's really wonderful to hear that you're with your people. I actually just heard where I live, it's a really remote little valley, and there's a lot of women who have been there for like 30, 40 years and moved out there to be like, pioneer women or whatever the
Right.
word is, just like to be on the edge. I don't know what the right archetype is yet because I'm just getting to know them. They don't always come out of their house and all of that. But they drum together. They have a drum circle. And so I went to the drum circle after my a big family wedding. So it was this like really intense, like family Scorpio eclipse percolating, everybody, everything. And then I went to this little pocket of women who are like older and drumming really quietly with the earth in the valley where I live. And I know that there are mountain lions there, like there's a huge face of a mountain lion that like everyone can see in the moss on the rock, like
Yeah.
right outside my window. But they said that they have seen a pair of black Jaguars in Southern California. And I'm always telling everyone, like, I live in northern Mexico, like, the border
Yeah,
is made up,
that.
and the
Yeah,
land tells me that this is still an unseen country. But to
yeah.
hear that, it solidified something in my heart about um, this language I have called Hobbit sprawl, which
Oh,
is
I
like,
love
well,
this.
where
Tell
am
me
I?
more.
Like in my home, or I am in someone else's temple, or like where should I go? Should I go here or not there? It's like picture the land and the city and the grid, and then picture that there's like a big octopus plopped on top with these tendrils. And like, for me, I'm the center of the, I live on top of the hill that's the center of the octopus, but for you, you're your own center of your own
Yeah,
octopus, right? And then the tendrils stretch even to other countries and other cities, and it's
yeah,
long as you're navigating along the tendrils of the hobbit sprawl, you're going to find the same animals, the same medicine plants, the
yeah.
same rhythms, and you're going to feel at home. So
I
this
love
is
that.
my newest definition of like feeling at home in my body or in the landscape. And so I think we might be connected by a tendril, and two of
We're
your
connected by
jaguars
so.
ran up the tendril to
Yes,
help me feel at home.
we're in the Hobbit scroll together. I is Humboldt County, Northern California. Like that is my that's like my USA landing spot. And I always do feel like I'm still in Mexico
Mm, yeah, yeah.
when I'm there.
Just a nice little comment from one of our more scientifically minded listeners sharing that because of climate change, the big cats are expanding their territories. And you
Mhm.
used the word humbling just now, and that's how I feel when it's like, we might have pushed them back for a little while with our cities, but ultimately they know how to survive here. We don't. So if they're
Yeah,
coming back in, then that humbling needs to happen on a grand scale, and that can only be a good thing.
I think so. I have a client who she's young and very magical and Swedish and just wrote this book, but she's it's like climate optimism. So looking towards, which I really resonate with, this idea of not moving with love towards Mother Earth from a fear place that like we're all gonna die, just from like while I'm here I'm honoring and I'm living in harmony, and like I'm believing in you and you're believing in me. Like I like to go into the earth care frequency with that positive like climate optimism perspective. Although
Hmm.
I see I'm when Jaguar energy goes down, so it's not like I don't see the darkness.
Yeah. I have all these questions for you, but I like our audience questions coming in already. So I thought maybe we could take turns answering this one if you have an answer coming from Allison Evelyn. Is fasting ever okay for us in bleeding years? And I'm really into this like opinion thing right now, where it's just like, well, this is just my opinion. Do with it what you wish. But I'd love to hear yours
Same.
as somebody who's so deep in the womb as the portal into the self-care.
Uh-huh. So we resonate on the I share from, I was just talking to a friend about it because she was like, do you want to do a healing residency here? And I was like, I'll come and do like an artist residency where I can share different things that I know about, but I don't want to be in a dynamic where someone's like, you are my healer, even if all goes well. It's like,
Yeah.
I can share with you these tools and then share with you how they've helped me. And then go forth and experiment, create your own Medicine Woman journal, because maybe fasting is exactly what you need in your bleeding years. And then your tribe, it's almost like the Hobbit scroll. There is that tribe of women who, like, what you did will create a blueprint for them to start walking and make their own unique kind of offering that's coming from a place of embodiment. And there are things in the physical dimension that are important. I think a medicine woman should have her journal and like be aware of the rhythms of linear time and her moon cycles, and experiment with how things are affecting her body and her cycles and her how she's feeling and energetically, and have a way to keep track of it. Sometimes when you're just like in the flow, I'm really like just water in the flow, and without something to ground me back, I won't see the rhythm and then know how to zoom out from it and like play with the nuance of it a bit. So that prequel, I will say that I once drank only water for 21 days. Um, maybe twice. I fasted very long time twice. One was in a fasting center, and it was when I felt really compelled to do it, and it was because I was being told that I was getting like tumor forming. And something that can happen with a deep fast is that the body goes so quiet, like an animal when they're very sick, and they just go in the cave and they don't eat, and they'll like sleep, and they'll drink water, and they'll sleep. And then the body has an opportunity to like release other tasks in that quiet liminal space, and like send the white blood cells or whatever however you want to approach that frequency to like find where might need a focus of energy, of Shakti, and it can have positive effects. Now, something I also feel strongly about is drastic measures of any kind. So I will say that I resonate best with like a droplet in the cauldron is a language I use a lot. So like honoring the cyclical nature of the bleeding body, I think is important. And as opposed to feeling like I need to do this for 30 days straight, being like, maybe I'll fast 1 day a week in my rhythm now of living. Or I'll be on juices on Sunday and I'll pray, or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah.
So it's more like the Jaguar style.
Interesting you should mention that, because at the wedding where I saw like 80% of all the people that I've known over the last 10 years and got, you know, this huge blast. One of those people was saying that intermittent fasting, meaning like for like a period of every day, you know, was like really the thing for her, as somebody who's like deeply explored a lot of different yogic principles in health and self-care. And so it feels like intermittent fasting, maybe, because I haven't practiced it, but maybe that's like the microdosing of the fasting world. And I'm hearing that a lot because now I'm like on the mountain. So like I don't really get up in it in like, you know, as much, but people come to me and they bring me like their stories, and their stories always have some, it's like watching the news, you know, that's where I
Yeah.
get my news. And the last few times that anybody's come to the mountain that's been like, you know, on their path for decades, facilitating for decades, like really like a younger elder kind of energy, they're all kind of saying like, I don't need to be, you know, if they're like an Amazonian medicine woman, like, I don't need to be blasting people out with like more and more servings of medicine. Like that doesn't resonate. And they're all people who work really deeply with women, maybe in addition to groups. And so it does seem like maybe it's an age thing, uh, you know, because I really don't believe in the linear time. So whenever I have an epiphany, I'm like, am I having an epiphany that's like appropriate for these times? Or am I having the epiphany that everybody that's 41 has about
Same.
slowing down and less is more and all of that? But I would say that the age group of people that I'm working with is also changing, like less from people like 20 to 40 and more from people like, you know, 30 to 55. And
Me
so
too.
the desires are just different, the needs are different. And I think that like if you're in practice, then there is a refining that happens where we're not like exploring far and wide because we sort of figured out like, this is my area somewhere over here. So we're not like explore this, explore that, or like explore like what one of these of the prism is where all of my teachings will be. And so hearing that
The
in
light
your
is so pretty on your hands when
oh
you're doing this. Yeah, that was really beautiful. I love you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for my part, you know, in answer to the question, I always kind of like to answer in the context of like, I've studied in a lot of different traditions, and those traditions all influence my decision making. So when I say I'm making like an intuitive choice, that intuition is informed by these different ways that I've studied and practiced that do have like something specific to say. So it's
Yes,
like
that's
the
so well
wise
said.
woman tradition is like no purging, no fasting. We talk about this on the podcast in depth. But I think that that tradition also maybe is of the time when there was like it was really bad with the like health fads for women, you know? So things
Right.
like purging and fasting were being dropped into this like 1980s supermodel climate with cocaine
Right.
and everything else. And it was, and people were like dying of like really
Right.
extreme health choices. And so it was this like rejection of all of that and being
Right.
um, like how do you work with what you have like how do you work
Right.
with it all as um, material for your process, rather than like rejecting any part of what's going on in you as like not the path, and so
Right.
that when it comes to like, you know, that tradition is just like, well, there's no fasting ever. But, you know, I had someone I was very close with who I lived with for a number of years who fasting was her medicine. So I still did try it with somebody who really believed in it and had all the facts and books and whatnot. I have low blood sugar. So I found that when I fast, I have like extreme mania. And I've never done cocaine, but it's like the way that when people talk about how you feel when you do coke,
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
jump off a building, like
Yeah.
that is how fasting makes me feel because of my blood sugar. And I've had like manic
Right.
episodes and like, you know, quit my job and dropped out of college while I was fasting. And so
Right.
I just learned like that's not really good for my chemistry because, you know, I think there's some undiagnosed bipolar in my family. That's where we're kind of
We
getting
talked
like
about
the
what's the book?
book. I don't remember.
The Two Sides of the Goddess.
Oh
You
yes, yes, the
yeah,
double goddess, the
the double
bipolar
goddess.
goddess. But like, you know, it's like with our rose sadhana that came up a lot is women just being like, whenever I do an extreme practice,
Mhm.
I it actually can activate this extreme dysregulated state. And it's
Yes.
like a lot of times people will say that's the medicine, but it's like, isn't that handy to just be like, you're so dysregulated right now? Well, I did my job as a medicine woman. Like
Yeah,
it,
I really have a lot to say about this. I'm feeling it. I don't even know how hard I want to go.
right. So, you know, just to pull it all back in for the question with the fasting and the bleeding, what I found is that, like, I'm really, what resonates most with me and my body, my mental health, my physical constitution and sensitivity is the nourishing traditions. And so the nourishing traditions are ones that would typically say that, like, there's something um, soothing and nutritive and toning that can help any problem, and that we're going to approach it from that perspective rather than as something that we have to cut off or cut away or
Yeah.
reject or resist. And that I've actually found going really deep into different menstruation diets from the tantric traditions and from Ecuador and from South American medicine traditions, that those diets are very similar to what you'd find in the like Weston Price nourishing traditions, Sally Fallon nourishing
Right.
traditions. And so while doing that, I had like this sort of epiphany in my brain, or the little light ups of my synapses that said, you know what? This is fasting. You're calling
Yes,
it something
also that.
different. But for someone
Yeah.
who eats a Western diet to have like broth that has no onions, no garlic, no salt, and coriander greens for the whole time you're bleeding, and like maybe a little cooked fruit, you're going to have the same mental reset, freak out, difficulty of, you know, like of just going simple. And so for a woman's body that's trying to do so much more hormonally than a man's, I think that the traditional menstruation diets kind of are the fast of the nourishing traditions and serve a lot of the same purposes. I'm complete.
Yeah. Yeah, I love you. Yeah, I love that. And it's because I'm always on this like life is frequency, you know, and then from this frequency we are creating this language around it, which then feeds back to us, um, activating different synapses and experiences in our brain and memories and sensations. So just the energy of deprivation to reach a certain end is not in alignment with, um, my personal flow or the way that I share my perspective in medicine with women. And that's what I found along the path. So there is an element of alchemically bringing things into balance that will often require the removal of something, while still to create a different alchemy in the pot so another thing remains. And that could be seen or described as fasting from something or in a period of time or from some specific food in some way. But it also, from the other side of the coin, you know, like you're saying, can be viewed as refining your ability to nourish your body in its right cycles and rhythms. And I think it's really important, or it has been important in my path as a woman also with who's balancing her waters. I can go very low and very high too. So that's like a focus, to just use a language and approach that is coming from a place of I'm nourishing myself. If I'm wanting to lose some weight, I will deliberately tell my mind, you know, I want to just nourish my body in a certain way that it feels it's in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can get a lot done, like jogging really hard and being like, just go, Jag, you just run off that cake. But I don't. I curate my reality to not go to that space. It's not best.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. You're such a word magician, and I just love to be around word magicians because we can share so much medicine by sharing like language codes. So like how we talk to ourselves and how we think about ourselves. And so I think that's a really major part of your gift that, you know, is probably um, works really well in the sensitivity and subtlety of the womb steaming ritual environment, but that it's like a part of that, of your medicine, that you could just take everywhere you go and share with everyone. So I just want to like thank you for that and noticing that and appreciating that right now.
I received that. I love you.
Love
That's
you.
interesting because my master's is poetry. I
Oh,
I
right.
was listening
Right,
to
right.
our, yeah, and then I had the
There it
brain
is.
restructuring. Yeah. So it's like the combo of the restructuring that took me down and the poetry that I was still kind of in the head. It's good.
Mm. We're getting another question, or we got one a little while back that's really quite related. So there's a flow occurring in this conversation. But
Okay.
from Butterfly Medicine, is veganism sustainable for womb health? So, you know, opinions.
Nobody come for me. um, it's kind of a similar answer in
Yeah.
that, and people get so particular and passionate about this idea of diet and what's best. And
Yeah.
then sometimes we find one that's really working for us, and then we want to like proselytize about it.
Yeah.
And so no matter what I say next, I just foundationally feel that it's just finding what is your unique alchemy is what helps us. I know as womb carrier, I speak from that perspective because I work from a visceral place, and this is the body that I was given. So it's what I'm working with. So anything that I would say about a differently bodied creature would have an element that was missing from the equation,
Right.
which is the personal experience as a womb carrier. And I was raised vegan. So that means I was vegan in the womb, and I was vegan every day till my late 20s, when, for reasons of finding my own spiritual voice, I was like, I'm going to try eating meat, because I'd literally been told it was, you know, ingrained in me, connected to a path, a spiritual path of Seventh-day Adventism. And it was really in my mind, like, you've never tasted meat. So if you eat that meat, you will die. Not only will you burn in hell, but your belly won't be able to process it. You're just going to die. And then one day I was like, I'm going to eat this steak, because this is even before car accident. Eat this steak. And so I did, and it was so delicious. And I felt really great. And I did not die. So those are just some facts to play with in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, I was vegan for 14 years before my training in the herbalist, the wise woman tradition, and as an herbalist, and that included in the introduction to the nourishing traditions. And then maybe when I was 33, um, I went to see a mushroom medicine woman and, you know, spent maybe 5 days in her witch's hut and had two large dose journeys because I had like microdose on my own up to that point and just felt like I know myself and there's not a lot of people who can like really hold space for me. And it's like I really needs like a wise woman who's like really deep in this to what I said was, you know, be my lifeguard on duty while I
Yeah.
like dive into the deep end of the pool. And there, once again, the nourishing traditions were a huge part of space. And so it's like they just kept finding me. And they're, for people that don't know, Weston Price was a dentist and he got really curious about why he's like what indigenous people did before dentistry to like take care of their teeth. So he like took his camera and decided to like travel around and take pictures of indigenous people's teeth. And what he found was that they all, like, not they all, but you know, that a great many of them had perfect teeth with no toothpaste and no dental floss and no fluoride. And so he like came back with that feeling when you're like on fire, like, I gotta tell the world we're like wrong about something. And what was it? And it was the diet. And so it was the similarities in their diet. So he started to kind of collect and bring forth that information, and other grandmas from all over the world kind of ran with it and are like, oh yeah, here are our recipes for our soups and they have the same kind of stuff in them and here's how we accomplished that. So you know, I'm not going to say veganism like made me unhealthy because my family has a lot of struggles with like intergenerational nutrient deficiency and all that, but it wasn't helping. And the nourishing traditions have helped me kind of bring back certain aspects of my life and really help me like regulate some like horribly painful periods and things. And I'm gonna say like there's no magic bullet. So it's like we're kind of having a moment around the nourishing traditions, like just meat. You know, they are meat based diets with bones and snouts and organ meats and all of that. And so whenever you see that like something's kind of gotten picked up and is becoming popular, it's like this could be good, or it could go into that diet fad culture where people are like, this is the magic bullet. I'm going to stop doing all my other self-care things and I'm just going to do this now. And I can say, as somebody who's like actually been eating that way for like maybe 15 years, little by little by little, more and more and more, that it's not the magic bullet. I still had a little piece of my tooth chipped the other day for no reason, you know, like the body is really complicated. And so the shortest answer that I could give around like bleeding bodies and veganism is just, I don't know how you would achieve the functions that the body is needing to achieve to produce a full, a fertile period personally, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just don't know what you would need to do to get there in terms of the different, you know, components and bacterias and microbiome things and hormone things. Like it's so complicated. Yeah, that, so, you know, I'm sure there's someone that could, if you felt that that was like the answer for you, I'm sure there's someone out there that could guide you to do it in the best possible way. But I'm not that person.
Bone broth saved my life. It was in that same period of after the 21-day fast, actually. Bone broth, like real bone broth, really saved my life and was really powerful. I could feel the medicine of it actively healing what was going on internally in my body and my digestive system every day, day by day. And another significant factor that is in terms of the alchemy, taking into account the specificity of things happening in these times, are what we overall want to be doing. Because whether you're eating a tomato or some steak, you want to be eating an actual tomato or actual steak. Okay, so that's like something that's really more foundational than what the diet specific choices are that you're making. There's something that's like deeper that's happening right now, that your body is benefited by real actual food. So there's things that we can avoid, whether we're vegans or meat eaters, or that we can kind of curate and be conscious of, whether we're vegans or meat eaters, you know, like, where is this food coming from? how is it grown? Like, is it really the food that it says it is? What is
Mhm.
inside of it? That's what my body is going to get from it. Like that type of thing, you know? So like local food and organic food and things as much as you can grow for yourself and cook for yourself, and where's the energy of where this was made. So I think those are also thoughts that can help us on the path with food in our body.
Yeah. It's kind of, I've been through some real cycles since 2020 because, you know, I became a land steward, which was like tripling my financial responsibility while halving my income because my income was in-person events, you know? So it's like it all
Yeah. Ooh.
together at like, you know, the perfect time, but you know, oh my God. So the way that I eat changed a lot because it's something where you can like just buy less or spend less and not
Yep.
get the like, you know, go to the like not go to the farmer's market and just buy whatever I want. And so I didn't notice, but a lot of processed foods crept in where I would look at it and I would be like, it's just corn. It's so great. Like these, I love these like Inca corn kernels or these
Oh,
giant
I love those. They're
corn.
so sweet.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's just corn. And then it takes me like months of eating that feeling like, yay, it's healthy, even though I'm buying it in this bag, right? To
Yeah.
look and be like, you know, it's like fried in some other oil that's not even its own oil, the corn, you
Yeah.
know, and just going, oh crap, how did I just fell asleep a little bit because of financial need. Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm reclaiming a little bit of like the intention that has gone into my diet at other times, and the main one is
Yeah.
just like all the processed things that have weird stuff in it. Like you have a bag of prunes and it's got like safflower oil in a bag of prunes, you know?
Yeah. Like
Uh,
why?
yeah, that's it. You're just like, why? And so the big part of the GAPS diet that I thought was so healing, which was like it stands for gut and psychology syndrome, but I did that as a major journey, was just the fact that like you can eat whatever you want, but you have to make it yourself. You can have
Ooh,
fries, you can have aioli, you can have bread, but you have to make it yourself because that's
right.
the only way to get it without certain things in it that are
Right.
irritants and allergens and all that. And so it was just, there's a lot of value in that. Because then you also like don't overeat things. Because if you make a pie or something, you're like, this was so hard and took so long. I want it to last a long time, so I'm just gonna eat
Yeah.
one piece a day instead of like half of it the day I made it or whatever, you know.
Yeah. I'm generally aligned with slowing things down and whatever is in the linear way, like slowing things down. It can speed the quantum things up.
Ooh,
So I think I think we generally can like, yeah, grow it more slowly, cook it more slowly, eat it a bit more slowly, whatever you're eating, kind of like shift the vibration. And then I feel strongly about infusing, you know, it's like putting flowers on your shit, I always say. You can't maybe stop shitting, but you can put some flower petals on top and like do it in the beauty way. So that resonates with me. Something coming up about fasting that my priestess energy wants to like throw into the field of our chat is that fasting is a strong spiritual component in many practices. You know, I was with the medicine man and the medicine woman, living with them for maybe a year and a half in their hut and travels, and tying a lot of tobacco knots, you know, in a native path, and doing prayer ceremony and sweat lodge. There was a lot of fasting. When you're tying the knots, you're not eating, you're fasting, you're going into spirit. I grew up with my father. I'm a minister's daughter, but I tell you, I think he's really a Guyanese medicine man, but he puts it under Jesus because the power's so big. But he fasts. He has this prayer list. My whole life, he's fasted every Thursday, and he goes down that list and he prays. And people have contacted my home and my father from all around the world my whole life to get onto this list because, like, his miracles pop. And he fasts one day and he'll pray that day, you know? And we were raised to grow up and like do the same thing, like have a day where you're like focusing on the divine and your energy with the divine and nourishing the divine connection, not nourishing the physical. And I think adding that rhythm to the cycles of your life of deliberately focusing on your divine connection, that can be very potent in our practices, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. I spent a lot of time in the tantric traditions, which definitely um, some of them accomplish their spiritual aims in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, like for all I've explored, I won't say it all because that would be ridiculous, but I've explored a lot of different things that are like opposed to each other in
Yeah.
ideology or
True.
like, opposite or different. And for me, like it just keeps coming back around to like that menstruation retreat, that time of the month of like, pausing from your regular activities or even your daily
Right.
practices and like going in a little deeper. It came up in our
Right.
last live around my songbook and my sister Hana Lee, who is doing the
I
song.
love.
Yeah, I think Lay actually, Hana Lay,
Right. That's
but
true.
is doing the Songs of Mother Europe journey. She was asking like, so like your songbook, it's so organized, it's really cool. Like do you like practice every day? Do you like what's your practice actually like? And it was like, oh, coming back to that menstruation retreat where it's like I might pick it up once or twice a week. If I feel feeling a certain song or I have a little extra time or be with myself, but when I really work with it, the real practice is in that menstruation retreat where I'll typically go through the whole thing and practice
Right.
every song and like really practice like a few times
Right.
and try to get the cadence, traditional ingrained in me. And so I just think we're gifted as women this really special, and I'll even say, womb carriers, this really special rhythm and space and
Yeah.
what we bring into that space and what we refrain from
Right.
in that space is it's just such a ripe place to decide to make your place of practice, and to bring all
Yeah.
practices to. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like naturally, it's already happening, kind of. It's just a surrender.
Yeah,
So,
the same
yeah.
way that, and that's actually something I was taught is that things like fasting or things like the sun dance where they're piercing the bodies with the
Yes.
and they're dancing around and even sweat lodge. I was taught that the origins of these things were ways for men to access the same states
The
that a
blood.
woman naturally creates and produces hormonally during menstruation. And so it's
Yes.
like, yes, we don't want to be prevented from anything we feel called to do or interested in. If like our wombs created the world and created man, and then man created some things, we don't want to be kicked out of them, but that if there's a spaces like that that are like, oh, this isn't for you, it's not always a sexism thing.
Right.
Sometimes it's just a matter of like intent of esoteric technology, and it's like you have the esoteric technology. Your body is the esoteric technology of the sweat lodge. So it's just a little like redundant maybe to like go
Right.
in and invoke a whole other rhythmic process to take you to that place. But I love sweat lodge, I'm not saying how to do it,
Yeah,
I'm just saying
same.
like this is what I was taught. And I
I
think
was
it's
taught the
interesting.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the medicine man with whom I did Sweat Lodge. That
Yeah.
is what, and medicine woman because he worked with his wife at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that like chemistry of the fasting and what it can produce in the body to help us reach some peak states for prayer that our own hormones of menstruation will do that as well. And they take us to slightly different states. We have access to different frequencies, and they feel like the whole idea of like the woman's initiatory journey is the descent, is like
Yes.
descending into like the depths of everything versus
Of
like
everything.
reaching this like, ascending to this like pure state to talk to God. And like it's like, well, first of all, I'm gonna do both. And as
At the same time.
I'm going to make sure that nothing convinces me that the descent is bad or evil. Like, I'm going to make sure
Yeah.
to be doing the one that my body is like naturally inclined to do.
Yeah. You know me, the womb steam, it's once a month. it's
Yeah.
the prayer with the body.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it has all of the additional benefits to the physical body and to the psychology and the psyche. But and it's the rhythm that I'm inviting everyone into. It's my personal prayer time with the body. Like I go in with the plants and what's needed and what specific recipe, and then we squat down, you know, and you
Yeah.
like go over the bowl, and then you feel it, and it's once a month, and I feel the rhythm in my body and all the things. There's like a additional factors that are going to happen in order for me. Oh, I'm sitting next to my Oaxaca bowl. It's very pretty, my womb steam bowl, but I love it so much. But there's like additional things that will have to go into creating that personal time for myself once a month. And then now it'll synchronize. It will be like I steam, then I bleed.
You know,
And
when
now the group is synchronizing. We're bleeding at the same time.
oh,
You know, that's my secret goal. I think we should all be bleeding at the same time every single.
yeah. And it,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of tells you that you are connecting. Like, you know, it's like, oh, we're all connected. And now we're all connecting in this online ritual or in this in-person ritual. But like, that's the proof to me
Yeah.
that that connection is real, that everybody recognizes it as enough of a village to be worthy of synchronizing with.
Yeah. I
Beautiful.
love it. Yeah.
And, you know, as soon as you mentioned the womb steam in this context, it does actually feel like an integration of that, like the kinds of ways when you feel like you're going up to pray, like, you know, medicines like ayahuasca, like to me, it does feel like I'm going like into the upper realms. And then
Yeah.
things like you're going like descending to pray, like, you know, you squat down over the bowl and you move the body down, but then the
Yeah.
steam comes up. And
Yes.
so there is this like I don't know, I guess I could just say an integration, or like I can feel this axis where you're able to feel into or touch or visit both places, you know, through in that
Yes.
practice.
Yes. That's the medicine. It's
Hmm.
like, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
Your bare feet on the ground, and then those roots of those plants, where no matter our body, that's where our grandma is in the earth. And these plants have come up, and then in this ideal flow, you're growing these plants in your own herb garden. You're harvesting them, you're drying them, you know, and then in the cycles of the moon with the body, you're putting them into this bowl, you know, with the salt and the boiling water, and you're squatting over them. Your grandmas have shot them up, you know, from the earth, from like their own womb, from the womb of the earth. Then you
Mm-hmm.
put that womb of the earth in the womb of your body, and your feet are on the ground, and your like head is high, and you're in birthing position. You're in a prayer posture.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I deliberately fell into the rhythm, or chose the rhythm, observed that the rhythm was helping me to release from some traditional Western medicines that I was on, and asking, like, hey, are you going to help me like get off of these, you know? And doctors are like, no, you're going to stay on these for
Mm-hmm.
my own mental health and balance and grounding. But those medicines would cut me off from that womb energy.
Yeah.
And that would also then sever my divinatory, psychic is a potent word, but I felt it was kind of severing both ways. And
Yeah.
I was trapped in this very 3D place without the connection up or down.
Yeah.
Um,
That seems like an apt description of the like state of being trapped in the 3D that, you know, causes women to seek you know, a guide.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So the beauty has been for me feeling connected up and feeling connected down, and feeling connected, capable horizontally as well.
Omnidirectionally connected.
Omnidirectionally connected. And so it is.
Ah,
I love
beautiful.
that.
So I'm seeing from, looks like Nitsib, any recommendations on nourishing foods for replenishing your body during moon time? I'll just share with you mine.
I
as
have your potion.
you know.
Almost done. I carry it with me.
Oh, thank you. So, you know, the keep it simple is like one of the most important things, because all of your energy is like in there working to clear out your womb. And so if our digestion is like has to work hard, it just usually doesn't feel good. Creates sort of like lower body chaos. I'm sure everybody's had, you know, where you're like cramping and like evacuating because you
Mm.
know it just can't do both, or it's asking a lot. I'm not going to say you can't. I won't make that spell. Keep it
True.
simple. The broths and the stews, like things really stewed down, without a lot of flavor, really like bland foods, is indicated by many traditions. And then, you know, around that, and those would be like meats and meat stocks. And but then around that, like dark leafy greens, things that are gonna like replace minerals lost from the blood. A little bit of cooked fruit, like really not a lot. Um, then most menstruation diets have some kind of a starch that's not, it's not a bread, it's not a carbohydrate, but that, you know, we would have had um, cassava in
Okay.
where like in my matrilineal ancestors come from. And then I found that in Colombia they also rolled little balls of cassava flour and carried them in a pouch, and that was like the woman's medicine bag. So you have make the bag and you make the cassava balls, and then you eat those when you're menstruating, and it was a sacred food. So why was it a sacred food? Because it was the thing that nourished pregnant women and menstruating women in matrifocal societies. So pumpkin and squash, those are associated with mother goddesses like Oshun, fertility
Yeah.
goddesses. So, you know, if you were to find a pumpkin or a squash that grows where your ancestors grow and also grows where you live now, that would be like an ideal thing to bring in. And then the red food. So Jaguar was saying she has one of our potions, and that is like many different red plants together. But it seems too simple, but it's really true that, you know, things like beet roots and the different like medicinal red berries and just blood building. Red foods are blood building.
Yeah. Yeah. It's everything is, it's the divine mother, so it's been birthed in the beauty way, and the codes are inherently stimulating. So that's why keep it simple works. It's like when you're bleeding, the red foods, yes. It's like and it's pretty and it's what you want to see. It's good.
So we have about 9 minutes left. I honestly feel like I could talk to you forever. I just enjoy it so much.
Me too.
But I wanted to just mention for anybody who missed it that we have a podcast. It's just the same, like if this is Medicina Rio Cosmico, is this online space, and that's for all the things of Rio Cosmico, which is my homestead. So our homestead also has a podcast called Rio Cosmico, and Jaguar was our guest this month. And so we have, actually it's a two-part episode. So if you just like are enjoying this, you know, we don't talk about these things. We don't, you know, we're talking about other things. And, it, you know, perfectly timed for the release, we're talking a lot about death and rebirth.
Yeah.
And the fits kind of with the Scorpio energy of the moment. So I had wanted to make sure everybody knew about that. You can sign up for the podcast and listen to those if you're enjoying this. But I really wanted to hear from you before we close, because I know you just had one of your new moon womb steams, and I
Yeah.
know that those spaces are really like deeply connected, and like that there's a transmission always,
Yeah.
something of the new moon energies that comes through in a really embodied way. So I wanted to know if there was anything that you could share with the group that's listening to this now and in the future. What was your takeaway or your sense of the transmission for this like Scorpio eclipse time and this Samhain Dia de los Muertos time, that coming out of your group womb steam?
Oh, that's beautiful. And we refer to it, I was kind of, it's kind of in my energy, in my field. So I did mention it a bit, and it was kind of what came through last night was about, putting the marigolds on your shit, it's like putting the Sempasuchil on the death frequency, bringing the beauty way to the dark liminal spaces and kind of going in. I talked about how my granny says, I don't go in without a gun and a flashlight. So I was like, okay. But like, what is your gun and what is your flashlight? I think the flashlight is what lets you like look in that dark corner and see it. And that gun energy is what helps you look it in the eye without being afraid. So to go into our inner work in that way and have your rose petals with you. And I was saying, my yarrow is my gun, I would say. And those rose petals are my flashlight. So they bring the softness that lights it up. And then I'm like, yarrow's here. I'll drop some of that in it if I need to exercise anything that happens. But walking in that way.
That's so funny. I was just thinking about yarrow this morning, so that must have been why. So I was checking with you, thinking of you. And it's like, oh, gun, ooh, but like,
Right.
I live in nature, and so I actually don't go outside at night without a headlamp and a machete. So
Right.
it's like, this is like not a metaphor, folks.
Right.
Well, it is always such a pleasure to connect with you, and everybody who's listening, just I think we're both here. Like, we're both actually present as ourselves in this space. We don't have other people posting as us or managing comments or any of that. So, like, any questions that you have now that maybe didn't get answered in this talk, or questions that come up later as you're digesting what was said, this can be an ongoing conversation. And, I really hope that if you enjoy the stories on the podcast, that you'll consider sharing them with your people, because that's what it's for. It's just as a giveaway, and to share some of the good things that we found on our paths.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always love connecting. I just feel your presence and your embodiness just through the screen. And I love it so much. And I know you're my sister. And I can't wait to come to the mountain.
Yeah.
In whatever way that flows. And I can't wait to have you with me in Oaxaca. Big cat sisters running together, however that flows. So and so it is in divine timing for the good of all.
Thank you for those beautiful spells. I am a yes, and have a wonderful day. Blessings.
I love you. Blessings.
Love you. Bye.